My name's Christy Braham. I myself am a researcher, but I'm also a traveller who's been to the polar regions and has a real love for that part of the world. I have joined Polar Impact, which is an initiative and a community of people all across the world who have an interest in the polar regions, so the Arctic and Antarctica. It's a mix of people who are researchers in institutions and universities. It's also postgraduate and undergraduate students, and it's also people who are interested in exploring and traveling to those parts of the world as well. And I would say that Polar Impact does have quite a big emphasis on education, particularly in local schools.
My name is Kirsty Flockhart. I'm an artist, art curator, and I'm the art and production officer for Polar Impact's project titled Polar Portals. So we've been trying to figure out ways to connect inner city children with viable careers in polar science. There's like a lot of lack of diversity in that field, so we're trying to find ways of fostering more diversity in that industry. So the goal of Polar Portals is creating tangible connections between these children and polar science. And so we've been organising physical postcards which feature artworks by Indigenous artists from polar regions. This is an example that we've made today that we're giving out. So we've been working on these postcards that we're going to take to Antarctica, to the Penguin Post Office, and then we're going to mail them to the children in South London. So the works have artworks by Indigenous artists, and they're going to feature QR codes on the back, which will feature video diaries from contemporary polar explorers. It's going to have interactive classroom activities for the children as well, and then finally it's going to have augmented reality aspect to it that actually features Antarctic wildlife, so that the children who can access these in class can then feature and see and play with augmented reality wildlife, which is really exciting. And so then the other facet of this is that we've been working on bringing there's two classes. We've brought them over to the National Maritime Museum. We've given them a rundown of the diverse history of polar science, and we've organised an artist-led workshop where the kids design their own postcards, where they feature themselves working in the future within polar science. That all the works that they've done, we've put into an exhibition that's currently at the National Maritime Museum, and so you can go there and see it. And we've also done a competition, so 3 of the works, which will be selected by a panel of judges, are going to be sent to the Penguin Post Office and exhibited there. That's kind of that's what we're working on currently.
The polar regions are the most fragile regions of our planet. I mean, of course, climate change affects. There is no region on our planet which is not affected by climate change, but for example, in the Arctic is the fastest warming region of our entire planet. Antarctica is also heating at incredible speed, and we need to protect these places. So it's really important that more and more people are educated about just how wonderful and fantastic these places are, and you know, how important they are for the entire ecosystem. I myself am not a polar scientist, so I'm not an expert in the way that other people at Polar Impact are. However, you know, for example, in the Arctic, we're already seeing the most extreme weather events. We're seeing sea ice melting at record rates. We're seeing glaciers melting. It's really scary, and you know, it's really, unfortunately, it's a sign of things to come if we don't take radical change now.
Well, our colleague Ben, who's unfortunately not here, but that's kind of his specialty. He does a similar thing to Prem, where he's like using satellite technology to do his research. So he's very sort of anti like people traveling to Antarctica because we don't need to anymore. And he's saying that's one of the best things that we should be focusing on. Is like how we can use technology to sort of, I don't know, better for the environment in that sense. For me, my involvement in all of this is just like, how can we be more inclusive? And the fact that like this is a white male-dominated industry. And I really want that to be a focus. And I think it's really positive that like Polar Impact was invited to come here, but also like there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's appreciating like the Indigenous communities that come there as well and what they have to offer as well.
Exactly.
Rather than having this sort of like narrative from predominantly white men.
Exactly.
Explaining what is good and bad.
And it's also about, you know, what kinds of knowledge do we value? So, I mean, you know, within the sciences, we talk about, you know, people trying to find, you know, what is knowledge and you know, what does that mean? But there are actually multiple forms of knowledge. And Indigenous people have intimate engagement over generations and generations through living there and hunting and exploring and also studying themselves. And if we're not including them, actively including them and consulting, then we are really missing out on a lot. And it's a loss for all of us at the end of the day. As someone who actually has been to the Arctic, the warmest possible pair of gloves ever, because you don't want to get frostbite. It's probably not nice.
I think like everyone brings a camera and everyone's got a camera, so there's something more intimate about a sketchbook.
Yeah. And actually, come to think of it, when I was in the Arctic, I bought a sketchbook, but I didn't use it to draw. I used it to keep diaries, of, like an expedition diary. And it's actually one of the most valuable things I have, because it's just, you have all these special memories that you can just look back on, and it's there physically. It's not typed up. It's not on some Instagram post. It's something you wrote with your own hand that you can never kind of duplicate. So I engaged on social media, and that's how I came to find Polar Impact, and that's how I came to learn about the founder, Prem, as well. Polar Impact has a website. It's www.polarimpactnetwork.org, but we're also active on social media, so you can find us at Polar Impact on Twitter and Instagram as well.